Chip Tam and football. That's what Pittsburgh does. What's up, everybody? Post-Gazette Steelers beat writer Brian Batko with you for another episode of the show. Pleased to be joined today by Kirk Ferentz, longtime Iowa football head coach, Western PA guy at his roots. Played high school ball at Upper St. Clair, and you may have noticed the last couple years, this year especially, Steelers hitting the Hawkeyes hard. So I'm really looking forward to getting his insights on Kaleb Johnson, Yahya Black, even the undrafted free agent defensive back Sebastian Castro. Should be a fun conversation with an old Pittsburgh guy who's been doing it for a long time at a high level in the Big Ten to talk about some of these newest Steelers rookies while we're in the in-between time from minicamp to training camp. As always, the show is brought to you by Pella. There's no better place to get new windows and doors installed in your home than from Pella, who can help you save on energy costs year-round. Schedule your free in-home consultation with a local Pella Windows and Doors to find the right product for your home and your budget. Give them a call at 866-593-1560 to discuss your project further. That's 866-593-1560 to get started planning your new windows and doors installation with Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. It is ridiculously hot right now where we are, so you might need to talk to those experts from Pella. And we're going to talk to an expert on a few of these Steelers newcomers right on the other side with Kirk Ferentz. I'll see you all there. All right, there he is now, Kirk Ferentz in his stately office there at Iowa, Western PA guy as well. Happy to have him on the show. How are you today, Kirk?
Good, Brian. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Well, before we get into the individuals here in Pittsburgh that you've coached, I mean, I think there had been one Iowa guy drafted by the Steelers since you got there in '99, and then all of a sudden, 3 in the last 2 years, plus some undrafted free agents. Did they finally remember you guys basically wear the same jersey, so it's a natural fit, or what?
Yeah, it's interesting. The draft's a very unpredictable thing, as we all know. So, Mike Humpel went there years ago. Mike was a really good player for us, and I think would have had a really nice pro career. He had some neck injuries, unfortunately, that pulled him out of the NFL. And ironically, he's back here now. He's a chiropractor and doing very, very well and raising a great family. So he's in our community. But last couple of years, a run of guys, and ironically, Coach Tomlin and Omar Khan had been out here a couple of years ago. And didn't take anybody that year, but since that time, we've had a couple guys go that way, and they're all top class guys.
And that's kind of part of the pro day process that gets missed sometimes too, I guess, from the outside world. It's like, okay, who are they looking at in this class? Obviously, that is a big part of it, but they're starting to build those files on the guys through the next years as well, right?
Yeah, they are. When you're in the draft process, you're getting as much information as you can about anybody. As you know, the draft is just entirely unpredictable. Certain things you can control, but a lot of it you can't. So, but it's never ending as long as the guy's in the league. Any knowledge you might have gotten with a guy coming out of his collegiate experience, down the road may pay off for you in free agency, that type of thing. So, you never learn too much, that's for sure. And Steelers have always done a great job with personnel, picking good players and guys that are really good fits in their program.
When they, I guess, started coming around a little bit more these last few years, did Mike or Omar or even Kevin before, like, kind of tell you, like, hey, Coach, you've got some dudes coming now that we are interested in? Did you sense a shift at all in the interest from them?
No, I don't think so. It's just it's a matter of how things fall through and or play out. And again, it's an unpredictable process. You mentioned Kevin; he was out here pretty much routinely. Yeah, it was always one of my favorite visits. We've got some commonality, and Ron Hughes, a guy that was his high school coach,
Sure.
Was a guy that I'd known since the '80s, and so a lot of commonality there. It's always good just to talk with guys from back in the Western PA area.
Absolutely. Well, let's start at the top with this 2025 draft class with Kaleb Johnson. I mean, he's a pretty ballyhooed rookie here. He's getting a lot of hype in Pittsburgh, Kirk, especially for a third rounder. Probably helps that, Steelers didn't have a second rounder, so he was their second pick. But, I mean, I'll just ask you, if he does become a star at the NFL level, like a lot of fans are hoping and wishing for, what would be the the kind of biggest reason or reasons why for Kaleb in your mind?
First of all, I mean, he just did a great job last year. I think that's one of the neat things about college football. You have more of these types of stories, I believe, than you do probably in the NFL. Because these guys are young. They're young when they get here. His story is interesting. He was actually committed to University of California, which is kind of random for a guy from Ohio.
Very much so. Yeah.
Hamilton, Ohio. It was kind of random, but he had a family member out there, so he committed early. And I remember his high school coach brought him up here for a game. And I think that really kind of opened his eyes that, maybe there's some things closer to home that would be attractive to him. So he came in and played pretty well as a true freshman for us. His second year, not as well. Didn't have the consistency you'd look for. Last year at this time, he was our second running back. We had a young guy, DeShon Williams, who was our leading rusher from the year before at the number one spot. DeShon had some injury issues during the course of camp, had some lower leg stuff. So Kaleb took advantage of that opportunity. And, boy, when he started playing, it was just great. He was almost like a new person, from, I thought, August 1st on. Had a really good preseason camp, just extremely focused. He's always been a great young guy, but he really had a different level of maturity and focus with his approach. And it showed up in practice, certainly showed up when he got to the game field. And, probably the nicest thing I say, he had a bunch of yards last year, which is obviously that's a good thing for a running back. But I thought in our last game that really, to me, spoke to the kind of player he was. And I think we made 5 first downs in our last ball game against Nebraska. But in the second half, just at the start of the fourth quarter, actually, it was pretty evident we weren't going to be moving the ball up and down the field. They weren't either. And he caught a little swing screen out to the right side and took it, whatever it was, 65, 70 yards, and probably broke about 5 tackles, maybe 6 during that course of that run. And my point there, I just think sometimes really good players know when you need something. And he stepped up, and that was the play of the game that got us back in it. And then we were able to get a strip sack, kick a field goal. We won the game right at the end. But to me, that was the key play of that game, certainly. And I think, certain players make plays like that and others don't. And that's the thing I'll remember as much as any of the yards he had.
Yeah, it seems like the recipe with him is, with his size and combination of that with the speed, wear a defense down throughout the course of a game and then still have that ability to break a long one. And, I think that's what the Steelers see in him. And that's certainly what I saw in him too, looking in the draft process.
Yeah, he's only a 3-year player with us and got better in each and every phase. And last year also was the first time I really felt like he started to use his attributes. He's always been a big, strong guy. He was 3 years ago when he showed up. Obviously, he's progressed a little bit, but last year he really took advantage. He played to his strengths, and just because the guy was in position to tackle him didn't mean that the guy was going to tackle him. And maybe he was a little bit more accepting of being tackled the first 2 years. So, yeah, he just, every step of the way he's improved, and that's what you want from any football player. And again, I think that's one of the cool things about college. You see guys change a little bit more dramatically than you do guys in their mid-20s, late 20s, or certainly 30s.
Yeah, they're more refining things once they get to that level, certainly. So speaking of big and strong, Yahya Black, did he just keep getting bigger and stronger every year with you guys? Because I actually went back just out of sheer curiosity, watched some of his high school basketball footage, and he was kind of a skinny string bean out there, but you look at him now and it's like a completely different person.
Yeah, he just kept growing. And he came to a camp here when he was in high school on a Friday night. Those are big deals now in college. Guys come to camps hoping to get offers, that type of thing. And lives a couple hours away from the Twin Cities of Minnesota, and certainly got our attention. That night he and coincidentally Lucas Van Ness with the Packers, they were the two probably best campers in the camp that night. And, so we offered Yahya at that point, came in and had a really nice career with us. Great young guy. He's always been a pretty quiet guy. And then last year he kind of came out of his shell too and developed into a really vocal leader for us. So, great young guy. I firmly think his best football is in front of him right now. He had a series of injuries that plagued him. He played a lot of games for us, a lot of snaps in game competition, but he's missed a lot of practice time if you look at it over a long period. And to me, especially with linemen really learn how to play offensive and defensive linemen, and that takes repetition, takes work and practice. And I guess what I'm saying is I just think he's got a chance to continue to blossom and grow, and it may be a year or two before you really start to see just how good he can become. But he's already a good football player. I'm not trying to minimize what he did this year, but I think the cool thing about him, he's got a lot more in front of him still. And said the same thing about Tristan Wirfs a couple of years ago, who came out after 3. A guy with a lot of growth potential, and certainly why he has that.
Yeah, I mean, he's fascinating to me because, there were actually a couple times in OTAs or minicamp where I thought, wow, this big guy, I mean, obviously he's humongous. I think Carl Dunbar, the Steelers D-line coach, says he blocks out the sun, but, he can actually move his feet a little better than I expected for someone who ran a 5.39 40 or whatever it was at the combine. And obviously that kind of speed's a lot less important than being light on your feet and nimble enough to get through a gap and rush a passer and that kind of thing. But it does seem like he's a little bit more mobile than you would expect from an F350, as Mike Tomlin called him on the day they tried him.
I think that's fair. He's not a slug. He's not just a space a guy that takes up space. He can play football, and he's got good athleticism. Like he could have probably been a really good offensive tackle as well, but he wanted no part of that. He's a defensive mentality guy, and I think he's got more than enough ability to be a really good NFL player, and he's got the attitude. So it's just a matter of him staying on the field and continuing to refine. And I think a lot of times I don't want to say a misconception, but I think people, fans, and sometimes even people in NFL organizations don't appreciate enough that guys do change and they improve a lot in their first couple of years in good systems. And certainly the Steelers have done a great job with the guys that they bring in. They do a great job of, giving them a chance to develop and grow. And that's what good players do. That's what good people do. So, I think you'll see that with Y. And I'm confident Caleb's going to continue to do the same thing as well.
When did YA start looking like a 1970s football player? Because with that hair and especially the goatee, and it looks like at one time he had a mustache, it seems like you could basically drop him onto an old VHS tape in the Steel Curtain era, and he wouldn't really look like he time traveled from 2025.
Yeah, there's a little evolution there, but yeah, he definitely did. And again, great young guy, but yeah, just he really came out of his shell. And he's just a kind of a quiet, reserved guy, and didn't say a lot first couple of years. But last year, a year ago December, that totally changed, and he just became really very involved and very outspoken with his teammates, and all in a positive way. So something I really appreciate.
For sure, yeah, that's a big help to any head coach. The last guy I wanted to ask you about, he's an 8th rounder. He's in part of the undrafted class here, obviously. Sebastian Castro. Just call him a defensive back because I talked to him after one of the OTAs practices, I think, and he's like, they got me at safety, but we'll see what happens. He plays like a throwback kind of guy too, from what I've seen. Were you surprised he didn't get picked over those 3 days after how productive and versatile he was in college for you guys?
Yeah, a little bit. He's had some injury issues too, but he really came out of his shell. Kind of a Kodak member. A year ago, December, we're getting ready for our bowl game. It's just like he hit a different stride. I say a year ago, I guess it would have been 2 years ago, but that was, he'd always been a great guy in our program, played high school quarterback, really good athlete, Chicagoland area. And that's really when we could see him gain confidence. He was a good special teams guy, but all of a sudden he was playing really well on defense for us. And he's had a really productive last couple of years for us. And, he's a physical guy. He will come up and tackle and hit you. So that's a good thing, certainly for a defensive back. And I think he's probably got some flexibility to play anywhere inside. He's not a corner necessarily, but probably flexibility to play in the slot or else back in the safety spots. But good football player. Not the most talkative guy. You got to pry it out of him every now and then.
I found that out the hard way talking to him that day after practice. But he did seem to have the right mentality because I was like, I was asking the usual beat writer questions of like, are they using you at safety, slot corner? He's like, he's like, I can't worry about that. I got to play special teams first and prove my worth in that phase of the game before I even start thinking about that.
That's good. Good that he understands that because that is the pathway to playing typically.
Yeah, especially for an undrafted guy. Well, of those 3, Kirk, is there anything that people don't know about Kaleb or don't know about YA or Sebastian that hasn't gotten out there in the many stories that have been written about them, from Iowa or since they've joined the Steelers or even in their high school days?
No, just all really good guys, first class guys, and I'm not here to evaluate the draft or any of that stuff, but I think all of those guys, we've had a lot of guys go on and have success in the NFL, and they're, wired the same way. They know what it is to show up every day and go to work. And if they have a bad day, they'll come back and get back on their feet the next day. And you're going to have bad days no matter what you're doing, certainly in the NFL, trying to compete at that level. So I think they get that. And, from my vantage point, they're guys that are fully capable of making rosters and making practice squads and find their way to the field, making contributions to help a team win. And to Sebastian's point, it's something we talk to our guys about all the time. It's, it does start with special teams. It's the same way here. That's the fastest way to the field. Unless you're an offensive lineman, it's a good opportunity for you to get noticed, gain some traction, and also feel more comfortable just getting the pace of the game and getting used to that. But, I think just really happy all three of those guys are together, and I think they'll do a great job. And, you guys drafted a really good guy of ours last year, Logan Lee, who's, same thing. Just I think he's got a lot of upside, and he'll have a long, good career there in Pittsburgh.
Also, from your vantage point, is it going to be kind of fun that they all are playing for a Steelers franchise that you grew up watching in your middle school and high school days, and I'm sure there are still some connections back home. Are you going to get more people texting you and calling you when they're making plays on Sundays for the Black and Gold?
We may get all of that, and that's to your point. When I was in high school was right when the Steelers were breaking through. The 70s were a great decade for Steeler fans, and that was certainly a big part of my upbringing. And huge fan of Coach Knoll, and his career, what he did and how he rebuilt that thing. So that was great. And then, ironically, I go to the NFL, and for 6 years I'm across the sideline, and that's kind of a weird deal when you're a lifetime Steeler fan. So, but you learn the NFL too, your loyalties, where your job is, and that's something you just figure out. But it's fun to be out of that level of circumstance now, where I can actually be a fan of the Steelers, and just what a classic organization they've been for many years. And they're still. I think it's going to be a really interesting season for them. Cheering hard for them.
You were with Cleveland and Baltimore in your coaching career. Is that right? Yeah, you were part of that.
Years. Yeah. So interesting.
I also was looking back. I always like to look back in the archives. It's one of the fun things to do when you have access to all that at the Post-Gazette. And one thing I found in an old story about you, Kirk, why was 1.6 your nickname in high school football? I know it wasn't GPA related.
The good news, it wasn't my GPA. It's about the only good news. It was my actually average per carry. So if you need 1.6, give it to me. I was good for that. But
if you need a yard, he'll get you a yard. If you need 2 yards, he'll get you a yard.
Exactly right. And maybe a little extra, one of those deals. We back in those days, we always had 2 scrimmages, and you play the season. And we scrimmaged Stowe Rocks the first Saturday. Joe Moore was our new high school coach, and I took the ball 3 out of 4 times. Our last game, we upset Uniontown in 2 inches of mud. I think Kevin McLeod was our running back, and I got the ball 0 times in that game. So Joe Moore figured it out over in short time, and ended up giving the ball to Jeff Delaney, who was at that time like 14 years old, but he was a much better alternative than I was.
Well, I know you played it in college too at UConn, so I figured 1.6 wasn't your average tackles per game. So I was curious about where that nickname stemmed from back in the day.
Yeah, it was strictly yards per carry, and it took Coach Moore a little while, but he figured that out.
Who was? Were Upper St. Clair's big rivals back then the same as they are now with Mount Lebanon and Bethel Park, or who were the teams that you really didn't like in those days?
Yeah, those were the 2 big ones, and we just moved up my junior year. We moved up back then. It was a Western Conference, so that was the first big step up. Quad A, I think it was, or Triple A. I can't remember, but Bethel Park and Mount Lebanon would have been the 2 big ones. Probably Mount Lebanon number 1.
Gotcha. Well, hey, thanks so much, Kirk. Really appreciate your time here. Anything else you want to add on these guys, Iowa, or even anybody that you guys played? The Steelers, they were living in the Big Ten this year in the draft. They do that a lot of years, but especially this year, I think 6 of 7 picks were either from you guys or you played against them over the last several seasons.
Yeah, they just keep drafting well, and that's been a tradition. I remember when I was in the league, I think it was Bruner was drafted at tight end.
Yep.
Had a great career, and then Faneca was one of the linemen I loved as much as any evaluating guys during my 6 years. And, of course, he went to the Steelers. So They just a tradition. I think they know they have a good ability, it seems like, to identify guys that are going to fit their program and their system. I think there's been a long history of that, and then the continuity of the coaching staff. I think those are two of the secrets for their long-term success, and it's fun, and it's like I said, it's going to be a really interesting year this year. I think it'll be a real fun year for the Steelers.
Yeah, and if they keep trending this way, all 22 starters are going to be from Iowa, Wisconsin, or Ohio State, I think.
That's not all bad. Yeah, it's not all bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you're someone who's gone to the Great Plains, but Pittsburgh, with its Midwest kind of feel, they're certainly tapping into that with this run of Big Ten guys. So
I always tell people, there's a big difference in Pennsylvania between Philly and Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is certainly more Midwest. It's and I've been here a long time. I never envisioned living in Iowa. This will be 36 years now, but two different stints. But it felt very seamless, the transition. Obviously, the terrain's a little different. The roads are a lot straighter, but the people here are really just good folks, and same way in Western PA. You can't beat it.
Absolutely. Well, hey, best of luck to you here in the 2025 season. Obviously, you're gonna have to replace some of those guys. That's the other side of the coin once they go to the draft. But yes, thanks again, longtime Iowa coach Kirk Ferentz, Upper St. Clair High School alum. Really appreciate the time, Kirk.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Brian.
Yep, we'll see you.
Yep.
All right, well, there you go. I believe that's the longest tenured head coach in college football, or at least Division I Power 5 football in Iowa's Kirk Ferentz, talking about some of the guys who are going to go on to hopefully for them contribute to the longest tenured coach in the NFL, Mike Tomlin's Steelers. So not just the jerseys and the colors that run parallel between the Steelers and the Hawkeyes. Another thanks to him and Iowa Athletics for setting that up. Hope you enjoyed today's show. And another sponsor here on Chip Tam and Football, Boss Menswear. Boss has reached icon status for its tailoring, but offers more than just the perfect suit. The collections also feature casual athleisure pieces, presenting a complete wardrobe for the fast-paced modern lifestyles. Tailoring and sportswear are brought together in a look that's ready for whatever your day may hold. Boss is now open at Ross Park Mall, which is about 10-15 minutes at most from where I'm sitting right now, with a selection of menswear pieces. So go check out all of that from Boss. And that was the Iowa football boss, Kirk Ferentz. I'm Brian Batko, one of your Post-Gazette Steelers beat writers. Appreciate you, as always, tuning in. We're in a little bit of the slow time right now for the Steelers, but we'll keep the content mill churning one way or another. I've got a story coming out Sunday that I'm looking forward to on Ben Skoranek, another kind of gritty, Midwestern, grimy type of player on the Steelers. You could say the Steelers offense, but really Steelers special teams occasionally on offense. And he's got deep, deep roots to Western Pennsylvania. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. We'll see you guys next time. Appreciate it. Stay cool out there if you're in the Western PA area or anywhere in the country where you're enduring a heat wave. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.